in those moments where God fully isolates you, I think it's really important to recognize you're never alone. He just wants to be alone with you. So once you start to see these things happen to you in these moments where God is talking to you through nature and through animals, once you start to recognize that, you realize every time you see something like that at an odd time you're not supposed to, you better look it up and find out why. Yeah. And ChatGPT is my friend in that way, because I will look up and say, okay, spiritually, what does this mean? So that I can kind of sometimes connect the dots, because sometimes messages are being sent to you, and if you're not present in the moment, you won't see them, but then you're quasi-present in the moment and you're like, oh crap, what was I just listening to? Or what decision was I trying to make? Or what was I thinking about that all of a sudden this is what God sent to me? And all of a sudden I look up out of the windshield and there is literally a bald eagle flying right in front of my car, like leading the way. And I'm getting Holy Spirit chills as I tell you this right now.
Hi, and welcome to Unlocking the Miracles Within. I'm your host, Jeffrey McDonald, and today we're at episode 16. I can't believe we're that far through this season. We have 24 shows this season, and we're getting to the last quarter of it, I guess. I don't know. My math's not any good. Mm-hmm. But this show is Nature as a Portal to the Divine with my beautiful guest, Angela Goodman. Mm-hmm. And I had the pleasure of being on Angela's show, Evolve Through God, which is a wonderful show. If anybody hasn't checked it out, please do. You can go find Angela. It's spelled like you think it's spelled. Goodman, good and man. But check out her show on Apple, Spotify. You can find it on all the platforms that you would typically listen to podcasts. It's a wonderful show. She has a lot of episodes out there. She's been doing it a lot longer than me, and she does it more frequently than me. So you got a lot of content to get through. But we connected. I think she's an amazingly spiritually grounded person in her faith and what she's trying to do for the world. So I'm excited to have her here today. And when we were talking about topics, she loves the topic of nature. So, that's totally, I love nature too, but it's totally, her relationship with nature and the divine is totally foreign to me. So it's going to be exciting to kind of dance through this today.
Yeah.
So Angela, welcome. Do you want to say hi to?
Yes, Jeffrey, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I am extremely excited to be a guest on your show today and talk about the connection to the divine and nature and, how that got cultivated for me.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, so, it's easy, right? Let's just share with me maybe where this all started for you.
Okay.
When you first realized that, it's just not beautiful outside. It's connected to the outside. It's interesting. So this, having been on my show, but my connection to God and my relationship with God really didn't start on a consistent path until my late 30s. And so it's been a lot of fun to look back over the course of my life and see places where God's been present for me when I didn't know he was there. And my connection to God through nature actually started when I was a kid. I was one of those girls who wanted to constantly be outside. I would run away from my house and my family and go out into the woods and just exist. And I played in the mud and I got gross and dirty. And I can remember when I was 12, we lived in an apartment complex. My parents were divorced and my escape was like Huckleberry Finn. I had a couple of neighbors who we built this wooden raft with a couple of sheets of plywood from houses that were being constructed. So we stole those, obviously, and built this little wooden floating raft that we floated through the marsh and used like sticks of PVC to kind of push ourselves along the bottom of the marsh. And I look back on that story, which honestly, I haven't thought of in probably decades. And I look back on that and I know God was there. I know God was there with me. I've been through a lot of difficult times in my life, and I always find myself at the beach. When I need a connection to spirit and the divine, I'm on the ocean, and I'm looking out over the waves, and I'm there for sunrise, and I'm there for sunset, and I get to watch the beauty that is our planet that God created, and feel that overwhelming sense of his peace. And there is no other place better for me to find him than outside.
You would resonate with my wife quite a bit. She just, she loves the beach. But I wanted to have a funny comment, and then we'll kind of get into the. It's like I know I'm probably a bit older than you, but you're still old enough to know that we pretty much tried to kill ourselves when we were kids, right? Mm-hmm. Going to construction sites and grabbing material and blowing things up. I did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Going into creeks, and I had a pretty harrowing experience when I was young, going through a pretty rushing stream. It happened after a storm and almost took me downstream. But I was thinking of you doing that, or rafting through the marshes.
Yeah.
The critters you might run across. So,
oh, yes. Yeah. I think about that now, and I think to myself, well, he must have been looking out for me, because I never ended up in the water. I never got so far away that I couldn't get back home. I never encountered a snake or something that was gonna be detrimental as far as a bite goes. Like somebody had to have been looking out for me. The amount of time that I have spent outdoors, appreciating nature, like somebody's had a hand on it for sure.
And it's beautiful. It is a different world today, though. I mean, people are so much more cautious. I mean, I'm sure your parents were like, well, you said you ran away. My parents kicked me out of the house.
Oh.
They said, if you stay around, you will clean the house. Well, it's like, I'm gone.
I'll see you later. I'll come back when the street lights come on. That's right. That's right.
You don't even have to call me. I'll be back when it's dark, and as long as I'm not dead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, the second piece of that was that I wanted to kind of draw out of you, kind of on a more, I don't want to say serious note, but a more spiritual note is, and I know it's this way for me now and my wife. I wasn't as conscious either when I was young. I played outside a lot, obviously enjoyed it. I just wasn't conscious and connected as I am now, where I can, sit and, see God in a tree, or, just out in my backyard, But, this kind of thing comes through different ways for different folks. So I wanted to share a little bit, just for the folks out there that are uncertain, if it's God or not, or they're yearning for that connection, and they're like, it comes through differently for different people.
Yeah.
So can you describe the best you can how that feels for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go to a time in my life that was pretty challenging. It hasn't been too many years ago. So back in 21 or 22, I was struggling in my marriage, which happened to be my second marriage. And at this point in time, I had come into a little bit of consciousness as far as Christ is concerned. I had been probably talking to God more than I did, and I had been in a time where my business was not in a good place, and my marriage subsequently was not in a good place. My girls were, 15 and 10, which was a tough time. And the person that I was married to, my second husband, is a great man, very great man. We had lost the connection in our marriage, and I was growing one way, he was growing another way. And so I had to escape sometimes. Like, I needed time alone to think and be independent and know whether or not the decision that I wanted to make was actually right with God. There's obviously a lot of different lines of thinking in Christianity about divorce and marriage and all of that, right? And because I was becoming more conscious, I wanted to get into a place where I wasn't doing something that God didn't want me to do. And I spent time by myself in Portland, Maine. So again, the nature component for me in connection with God is so important. I feel closer to him when I don't have a roof over my head, for lack of better terminology. And so I went to Portland on a solo trip. Again, my kids were 10 and 15. I stayed in a place right off the water. I walked in the streets of Portland, just contemplating what I was going to do with my life. And I didn't feel super connected to God in any particular way. But one of the animals that I have loved the most my entire life is the bald eagle. Like just the majesty of a bald eagle, just their ability to be free and be above the clouds and to, just something about the bald eagle has just kind of always been a thing for me, ever since I was little. And when I was in Portland, I had the opportunity, I had driven myself there. So another freeing thing for me, get behind the wheel of a car and drive. Like you get into that brain space where you don't have to think about anything. And so you kind of numb out and then things will come to you. So I thought, if I drive, I'm going to feel more connected. This is going to come to me. So I drive to Portland, nothing comes to me. That's fine. I'm in Portland 2 or 3 days. And I said, you know what? I need to go for a drive out into the wilderness, into nature. And I was very heavily contemplating that day what I should do. Should I go back home and tell my husband, who, again, amazing person, great father, that I felt like it was time for us to move on? We'd been married at that point 15 years. And, do I dig back in? We'd already been separated once, so I left that part of the story out, but we'd already been separated once. Or do I dig back in and really, and really kind of, give it another go? We'd been working on our marriage for about 3.5 years at this point. And I'm driving and I'm crying, like the tears. It's one of those moments where if I could have just collapsed into the floor, right, and prayed to God, it would be that moment. And I'm driving and I'm crying and I'm just so unsure of what to do and uncertain. And I have this anxiety inside of me that is just all over the place. And I just said, God, what do you want me to do? And all of a sudden I look up out of the windshield and there is literally a bald eagle flying right in front of my car, like leading the way. And I'm getting Holy Spirit chills as I tell you this right now. But there's a bald eagle in the air flying in front of the car, like leading the way on this path. And in that moment, I believe God used that bird to give me the sign of freedom. Go be free. Go be free of the burden that you're carrying right now. Go be free of the work that you've done. Go be free of what lies ahead of you. And in that moment, I never had gotten a peace. I told you I was totally full of anxiety over the decision that needed to be made. And in that moment, I had like full peace. And so that's what knowing it's from God feels like. When you are in that moment, when you are on your knees and you are so full of anxiety and you are so uncertain and you're so overwhelmed by all the feelings that you're having, if you connect to something in that way and you get his peace, that's your answer. That's your answer. And so I left Portland 2 days later, having had that message in full peace of, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to be free. And I came back home and I told him the story. And I've not told anybody else the story, by the way. You're the first.
Wow.
So I told him the story of what had happened. And he said, okay, I understand. I'm not happy about it. I still love you. I feel like I have enough to for both of us. And I said, well, but it takes two people. And unfortunately, you by yourself is not enough for both of us. And so amicably, we are still great friends to this day. That was years ago. He's getting ready to get remarried. So he found, a love who could love him the way he wanted to be loved. But in that moment, God sent that eagle to me to know it's okay, go be free. And ironically, 2 years after that, I was kind of in this place in my life where I was not feeling very free again. Just I had businesses and things that were weighing pretty heavily on me. And I had been looking for, give me something that makes me feel free. And I had the opportunity to meet with a friend who happened to be selling a car, a 2010 Dodge Challenger, and which is a car that, like, one of those cars, always kind of wanted to have a fast car, right? And I went to visit him. He's like, yeah, I'm selling my car. I said, oh, that's amazing. I've always wanted one of those. And he said, well, if you want to let's go out for a drive. And so you can drive it, you know? And I said, okay, that sounds good. So we get out on the road and I drive the car, and lo and behold, there's my eagle right there out the front of the car. So I bought the car. Bought the car. I was like, okay, God, I'm allowed to buy the car. So I bought the car in that moment. But, you know, God sends us his creations when we need them, whether it's people, whether it's animals, whether it's, you know, the sun rises and the sun sets, right? And it's really important for people to just take the time and be still and see what's going on around you, right? Everybody says, be present in the moment, be where your feet are. Had I not been present in that moment in Maine, I wouldn't have seen that bird, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, the decision that I made, although unpleasant and super uncomfortable for a few years, was the best decision for myself and for Scott, you know, and now he's had the opportunity to move on with his life and find, you know, the love of his life and go forth and be happy. And sometimes, even though it's going to be really hard, God gives us the okay, but we have to look for where the okay is going to come from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I love the eagles. I always have birds in my life too, but
yeah.
A couple of things I think out of that kind of touch me is, I know we get caught up in, and it's not a bad thing, right? I think God's intention for marriage is that we uplift each other to him. Mm-hmm. It's all about honoring God.
Yeah.
And so when we get married, we do it, and you know, our societal way, you know, whatever proclamations we make, a lot of times we're not even in a place where God loves us enough. You know, we know that God loves us entirely. Mm-hmm. We actually believe that God loves us like that we can actually make that decision to love someone else.
Yes.
Truly, as God desires us to love them. So we're the ones that have to grow on that journey, and God wants us to grow in that. And sometimes different people come into our life, like you said, friends or loved ones or whatever, that opens those doors for you, and to send you free like a bird on your way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I guess the message I love for folks to really grasp out of this is, it's not about, nobody wants to get into a relationship or whatever it is, a business or anything, and make a decision and make these commitments and fail at it. It feels miserable. Mm-hmm. So I don't care what you're doing. It just does. And the best thing to do is to turn all of that to God.
Yeah.
Because like you said, that moment, that I loved how you said that it's just that peace.
Yeah.
Just overcame you in your moment of despair.
Yeah.
And then you could have, in that peace, you could have clarity to make that next decision.
Yeah, it's I think one of the things for me in relationship is, to your point, our relationship is meant to glorify God. And unfortunately, the way my second marriage started was not glorifying of God. And while we had an amazing marriage for the time we did, the relationship wasn't bringing either of us any closer to God. And when God recognizes that, and you have something inside of you that he wants to pull out of you, what I've experienced is that you will often be left alone, fully alone, isolated alone. For a time, I was completely isolated after the marriage ended. My family isolated from me. Most of my friends who I'd been friends with throughout that marriage isolated from me. And God wanted me in that container by myself to draw closer to him. and then gave me a partner a year and a half later who then brought me even further closer to him, that I pray with now on a daily basis. We talk about God on a daily basis. We do. So in those moments where God fully isolates you, I think it's really important to recognize you're never alone. He just wants to be alone with you.
Yeah, really wants your attention.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I know we're turning into a relationship show, folks.
No, that's okay. We can go back to nature because I got plenty more of that too.
No, I get it. I just, that really did touch my heart, and I wanted to bring that up. I absolutely agree with you. I think even my wife and I, who had the fortune of growing together, I think that's the other thing that, we're lucky. We've been together 34 years, 38 years total, but we've been married 34, coming up on 35, and it's not because we had it all down.
Yeah.
A lot of it was luck, but the thing is we chose to grow, and then ultimately chose to grow in God together, which is really what took it to the next level. So,
it's very special.
Yeah. And so, all those things, I remember that was my brother. He was going through a divorce, and he kept on talking about all the stuff that was a problem. And I said, when you realize, brother, that it's not about the stuff, it's about what you choose, right? Then the stuff will it'll all just be the way it's supposed to be. But I said, it's really your choice, and it's all about God. And of course, unfortunately, his relationship with faith is not quite there. But of course, it probably landed like a thud on him at the time, but
maybe not. You
never know.
It's the mustard seed, right? You want to talk about nature. You planted a little mustard seed in him with that, and we'll see how long it takes for that to grow.
Let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah.
I love that mustard seed analogy. So Julie, when she's at the beach, we love Hawaii. We have a huge affection for Kauai. So we go there quite a bit. And it's just so beautiful to watch her. And I get the sense you're kind of this way. So, she'll, of course, want to go by the water, and then she'll turn to the ocean and say, I just want to see a whale. And then all of a sudden, a whale comes out of it.
Oh, I love it.
It's that kind of sign you had with the, eagle. She's like, I call her the whale, the whale whistler or the whale caller, because everybody's like, have you seen any whales? Well, my wife's seen them. So it's a lot of fun. And she's so childlike when she does it. So I know you talked about your love of water, and that maybe you can take yourself back into that space, but talk about, I don't know, the magic of that, like how that has a relationship with you.
One of my favorite things to do when I'm at the beach is to look for sand fleas, which are the little crabs that have this is my favorite thing, right? And when I was growing up, I grew up really close to Virginia Beach. And so we were at the beach all the time. And I would just sit in the sand and dig and dig and dig and pull up these little sand fleas, from big ones to little ones. So over the years, one of my favorite things to do with my kids is to go to the beach and dig up sand fleas. And every time I go, I'm always talking to God about, I just want to show them one. I just want to show them one. So 2 years ago, we go through periods of time where we're in very close connection with God. We feel very close to him. And then we go through times where we feel not as close to him, right? And I was in one of those moments in my life. This is not long after I saw the eagle. It was about 6 months later. Like, there was a whole period of time where God was just wanting to glorify himself to me at like every turn I took. So I took my girls. It was our first trip to Hilton Head Island with my boyfriend, Matt. And it was kind of like that whole friction, kids, a new person in mom's life, and all of that together. And so I wanted to have a special day out in nature. I wanted to take them fishing and go to this little place called Vanishing Island, which is right down off of the coast. And it's this island habitat that at every high tide goes under the ocean, and then at every low tide resurfaces. And so there's boats that will take you out there. So we go on this boat, and I had asked and prayed for dolphins so that we would all see dolphins on the way. We had dolphins so close to the boat that we literally could touch them. It was really cool. And then we get out to Vanishing Island. And I said to everybody, I said, wouldn't it be cool if God gave us a sand flea out here? So we're walking around. There's all these sand dollars that are still alive. So we're able to show them, and all of these starfish, and just really cool, the habitat on this Vanishing Island. And we're walking on the island, and the tide is starting to come in. And so we're noticing that. We see this high point in the island. So we walk over there. So Matt bends over and he says, there's this little thing sticking up out of the ground. What is this thing? And I said, oh, it might be one of the like granddaddy sand fleas. And of course, I've been asking for that before we got out there. So I start digging in the sand. I'm digging in the sand. And all of a sudden, this sand flea is about this big, is in my hand. And I'm showing everybody, I'm like, look, this is one of the great big ones. And this is, we've never seen one like this before, because the little ones on the beach and will get this big, blah, blah, blah. The darn thing grabs a hold in my finger and won't let go. It's like they had these great big huge pincher things. And in that moment, I'm not appreciating this sand flea, right? Which I've asked for it. I'm not appreciating it because it's biting my fingers so hard. And they're standing over me, and Matt's like, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm like, well, you can't pull him off because I geek him in. So I'm screaming because it hurts. And this woman comes out of nowhere, who was also on the island, and walks up behind us and puts something in my face and says, what is this that I'm holding right here? Mm-hmm. And I'm looking up at her. And in this moment, again, I'm not appreciating the sand flea. And I just started to laugh, because I feel like God sent her to me to say, you better stop and appreciate what I gave you, because I gave you what you asked for. Uh-huh. Right? And so in that moment, in that connection to nature, it was like a reminder, I'm right here doing for you what you want me to do. I'm going to send you somebody so that you stop screaming and acting like an idiot and take a moment and say to yourself, oh, okay. And I answered this woman's question, and I thought to myself, how could she even ask me that? And here I am screaming in pain, right? And she doesn't say anything to me. And then I realized, oh, you're being so silly. This is the moment you wanted to have happen. So then finally I had my hand like this, and I flicked him off, and his little pincher came free from his body. So it was still stuck to my hand. Wow. So I had to finagle to get that off later. But, you know, in those moments, if you stop in the stillness in nature, God will remind you why he's here, and that he's here for you, and that he's given you exactly what you've asked for, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So be careful what you wish for sometimes. Or you might end up with a sand flea that's attached to your hand that you're screaming about in pain.
It's like, pay attention.
Yes.
Pay attention.
Yes. And we turned around after that whole episode happened. We turned around and we looked, and the boat that we were supposed to get back on, almost everything was underwater now from the point we were to the boat. So the island was going back under again. Fortunately, we made it back to where it was in time before the island completely went under. But we were literally up to, and I'm not a tall person, I'm only 5'4". So I was literally up to my waist in the water, trying to get back to the boat before the island completely went back under the ocean. But yeah.
The timing, God's timing.
Yeah. But it is about being in that childlike moment of wonder where you get so excited that you're so happy, but you have to remember to enjoy it too.
Yeah, you were two things. You were talking about there's moments when God, you don't feel close to God, and there's moments where you feel close. Mm-hmm. I think when God's trying to stretch us on our choices, a lot of times he steps away, mm-hmm. and then it's like, okay, you know, just like you are when you're growing up as a kid, you learn something. Okay, we'll go try it out, mm-hmm. and let's see how that goes. And then comes back in when you fall to your knees and go, and you let go. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that touched me. The other piece though is nature, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So one of the things that happens to me a lot is if I'm just sitting outside chilling, and I can call it kind of a nature meditation, I will mm-hmm. see images, sometimes voices, but images of things, almost like history, mankind, people, especially in a place like Kauai where there's so many mountains, there's so many. I get why the ancient folks, referenced and they gave names because they look like people.
Yeah.
Same thing in Sedona, or Colorado, when I go to the mountains, I see faces and images, like imprints of
Energy.
Of energy, of mankind. I see it in my trees in my backyard. I see it in the clouds. I used to love. I was a kid who loved staring at the clouds and just, like a coloring book, just imagining what images were in there. So I still do to this day see that. So has there been a moment with you outside, your magical bird moment and your sand crab biting your butt?
Yeah.
Have there been any other beautiful moments where you have, I don't know how to explain it, because I always say it's witnessing God, it's witnessing mankind's, humankind's, like our thoughts and our impressions just don't leave the earth. They don't, I think they're in the water, I think they're in everything. So for you, have you had any of those experiences where the communication, if you will, maybe that's just the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll say this. So I had the opportunity, Matt and I had the opportunity last summer to take a driving trip from Cody, Wyoming up to Whitefish, Montana. And Whitefish is right outside of Glacier National Park. And I've always wanted to go there. Yeah. Just the beauty, of Painted Rock Lake, and it's so much there in that park. So we had the opportunity to go. It was late in the day. It was probably like 4:00 in the afternoon. And so we knew we were going to be there for sunset to some degree. And you're driving into the park and there's so many different places to go. There's lakes, there's forests, there's all kind of places to go. And so we decided to go to the redwood. They have a little redwood forest there and trail in Glacier. And it's not very far into the park from the west side. So we know we're not good. That's like as far as we're going to get to go. So they have this beautiful walk through the cedars. And we're talking, we're holding hands, we're walking through the cedars. There's not a whole lot of people there. It's like a raised wood plank. It's not really a bridge, but it's like an elevated walkway through the cedar forest so that you're not in contact with the ground. So there's literally, I've never seen them in nature before. But for some reason it's escaping me. So the plant that wards away mosquitoes, and it starts with a C. It'll hit me in a minute. It'll hit me.
I'm not a botanist. That wouldn't be me.
It'll hit me. No, it'll totally hit me in a minute. I'll think about it in a minute, and then I'll be like, oh, it's blah. So we're walking through there, but these plants are all over the ground. So it smells like that, and it smells like cedar, and it's got this amazing aroma to it. And then there's these little mountainside cliffs where there's a fresh spring coming out. So you smell like this beautiful fresh spring water, these plants, citronella. That's the name of the plant. So you smell the citronella smell. Okay. You smell this beautiful fresh like spring water. You've got the smell of the cedar. I mean, it's just almost like a summer Christmas card. And Matt and I were talking about God. We were having a conversation about God, and I forget why, but we happened to be talking about God, and we just were talking about how you see him in nature. And we literally turned the corner, and this amazing buck, massive buck, was standing there with this humongous rack just looking at us from in between a couple of citronella plants and these massive cedar trees. And I have the picture of him, so I'm going to send it to you because you'll be like, oh my gosh.
That's cool.
But in that moment, in that animal, I saw God.
Wow.
We had just been talking about, he was like a completely ethereal presence. And you almost looked at him, he was backlit because of the way the sun was coming down in between the trees and the plants. And it was just one of those moments that was like, oh, I'm here. I'm with you. I'm here. And then all of a sudden he just laid down in between the citronella and the cedars and just watched us, just literally laid there and watched us. And we watched him for a minute and then left him. But he was beautiful and massive. And when I had to sell my house in November, so I'm going through a little bit of a financial challenge. I exited one of my businesses and it's left some financial debris. So I'm dealing with that. So I had to sell my house in November. And because of this nature connection with God, usually every morning I'm out walking 3 miles in nature a day. And my old walkway went through a lot of woods and I saw this little family of deer. And every morning I would get to kind of where they were and I'd be like, oh, is my family here today? You know, I would look for them and they would look for me. Like we would get pretty close to each other. And so when I had to sell my house, I moved to the other part of the neighborhood and now my walking trail doesn't have that. Mm-hmm. And so Matt had come, it was like the week after I moved in and I'm like, I'm going to miss the family. I'm not even going to know how they're doing. You know, I'm not going to be doing any of that. And we turned in between these two houses and found this little wooded area. And the very first thing we saw was a massive buck. Mm-hmm. And it was almost like God was there letting me know, hey, you're right where you're supposed to be. You're right where I want you to be. And they're okay, you're okay, and you're still going to get to see them over here.
Oh,
yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, I have a picture of that one too. But it's like God follows you in the presence of animals. He follows you in the presence of people. So can you be still enough to see him and allow him to be with you is the question, right?
Yeah, and that's, you know, you talked about driving a lot. Mm-hmm. And God does seem to come through a lot when our brain's going to go into that road motion and we're not thinking of the past or thinking of the future. God jumps in, and I always joke, you know, get you crying. And then you're like, okay, I'm driving. I don't know, crying, you know. But the deer thing is just, we're fortunate. We live in basically the woods with 3 acres. And, you know, my wife just loves it. Like I think she counted them all. There was like 14 deer just laying in our front yard. And we try not to startle them all, but they're always around, you know. You know, and they're pretty good about not eating up all of our plants, but they do. They're hungry sometimes. So
you have to give them something else to eat, Jeffrey.
Yeah. Well, we're pretty good. We're pretty good about that. They're, you know, we don't freak out over our grass, and they like our big yard to eat a lot in. Anyway, you're right though. It's you know, it's pretty magical when you're in that space where you're able to receive, and how God, and I know it's totally different than where you were at, but I was just thinking of that moment for me, you know, with your car and the eagle and you and the buck. I swore one time I was driving and I was having this conversation with God and the moon was following me. It almost felt like it was on top of me, and no matter what hill I went down or what direction I turned, the moon was always sitting right.
Do you remember what you were thinking about during that time?
That's right when I committed to leave the corporate world and then jump off the cliff, basically. And I was going to run this alternate healing company, which I did for 8.5 years. But it was just really, it just became this conversation. It's like the moon was speaking to me.
Yeah.
You know, like the stars speak to you. And I kept on looking, because I thought, well, it'll go out of my view when I make a right here and go down a hill, and I'm going, but it never left. And every time I looked it was to top right, this big, just massive moon followed me all the way to my house. And I just, okay, I get it, God. You can move the moon. I'm not going to go into the science of it. It could be my illusion. I didn't have any good drugs, so it's not drug induced. Yeah. But it's just that kind of thing where you just have to fall into it and just go, okay, I'm yours. You know, let me experience it fully, whatever the craziness is.
And what are you trying to tell me right in that moment? What are you trying to tell me?
Yeah, that's a great question. So maybe step into that a little bit. I know you talked about the peace, like, you know, God's there. But we're all challenged with this at different times. Like, how do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I oftentimes now, and this probably isn't what God wants me to do with it, right? But sometimes now I'm like, I just go to ChatGPT. Like I'll have a moment. Yesterday it was funny. Here I am. I'm in a totally suburban neighborhood in the middle of Ashburn, Virginia, which is very populated but we've got some nature. We've got some woods, as I've mentioned, right? And I'm walking on my walk yesterday afternoon. I went out in the afternoon at like 2:00, and there was a fox like running in between houses. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to Bible in a Year, which admittedly I have not completely finished from last year. I think I have 30 episodes left, right? So I'm listening to like 2 or 3 a day to try to make sure I get through them all. And I'm listening to what was I listening to? Letters. I was listening to Letters from Paul yesterday. And all of a sudden, this fox comes running out from in between two houses at 2:00 in the afternoon. And for those of you who don't know, foxes are actually nocturnal. It's not normal to see them at 2:00 in the afternoon. And it's wintertime, so it's fairly cold. So I'm not really sure. He was probably confused. He's in the middle of all these residential houses. And so I'm like, why in the world am I seeing a fox right now? Legitimately. And what am I listening to? So once you start to see these things happen to you in these moments where God is talking to you through nature and through animals, once you start to recognize that, you realize every time you see something like that at an odd time you're not supposed to, you better look it up and find out why.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT is my friend in that way, because I will look up and say, okay, spiritually, what does this mean? So that I can kind of sometimes connect the dots, because sometimes messages are being sent to you. And if you're not present in the moment, you won't see them. But then you're quasi-present in the moment and you're like, oh crap, what was I just listening to? Or what decision was I trying to make? Or what was I thinking about that all of a sudden this is what God sent to me? Mm-hmm. So at 2:00, and foxes are about rebirth, and they are about working through problem solving and puzzles and being aware of finding solutions and whatnot. So in that moment, it's like, okay, I got to go to an oracle, like ChatGPT, and I'm like, okay, what does it mean to see a fox strategically in this moment? And so I use that. Sadly to say,
that's awesome.
I use that now.
I didn't even know that about foxes, actually, because I one time, this was at my last house, it just sat on my patio on the furniture, just chilling.
In the middle of the afternoon?
Of the day, just sitting up on a cushion like a cat. I'm like,
yeah.
Well, and he looked, I figured he was hungry.
Yeah.
That probably is what it was. And he was hoping to find something hanging out that he could
have for lunch. Yeah.
But I never even thought about it as back then. I wouldn't have thought about it as a message, but.
Yeah, typically if it's an unusual time frame, that's how I interpret it. Like I've had times where foxes in particular, some other nocturnal animals, I've had like possums in the middle of the day, which is very rare, obviously, for them also. I've had snakes when it's cold, which you don't usually see them out, even, on a day where there's no sun, right, for them to pick up radiant heat. I always now look for those messages. And sometimes same thing with the deer, right? Obviously, the day we saw the buck that we were talking about, God, that was like a direct message. There was no way to mistake what that was in that moment. And the same with the one here by the house. There was no way to mistake that in that moment. But there is meaning behind quantities too. Like there have been times where I've seen 5 of something or 3 of something or whatever, that there are really actually meanings behind the numbers that you see also, which I find interesting.
I love numbers too.
Yeah, me too.
Amazing. I remember you were sitting there talking about having these different moments. I had a magic moment with a spider, and I never thought I was never a big fan of a spider, but this spider, and I remember looking it up at the time because it was so wild. It comes out and spins its web at night, of course, to get its food, and then it packs it all up right when the sun comes up. And I just happened to be walking by. It was a real thick web too. But I was walking by it, and I saw this web, and then I saw him basically wrapping it up like he was wrapping up a tent, just taking it all back into his body. And apparently if there's a name for that spider.
I was going to say, what kind of spider is that?
Yeah, I can't remember the name now, but I did look it up at the time. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. But, just sitting there watching it, I think, I'm going to ask you, I always ask all my guests to kind of give 3 things you would do, because we're talking about having those moments with God and nature. And folks, for me, it's simple. Like, you don't have to go anywhere. I sit out in my backyard and just clear my mind and just ask God to, love on me, I guess, is the best way, or show me what's going on. A lot of times I'll go walking when I contemplate things. And I found it's very effective for me to record myself when I do that. That's how actually I'm writing my books. I walk and I pray, and then I just talk.
I love that.
And yeah, it just works for me. And you'll find different ways, but I think just being reverent and being present. And I was going to give one other example too of, Julie at her Hawaii love for the ocean, but it wasn't the ocean. I had went specifically and I said, hey, I'm going to go on a spiritual journey because, I believe God's connected to all things. I mean, I've had rocks talk to me and all kinds of things. And not that you don't put anything above God. It's not like you're worshiping him or you're playing with him or you're hinging on every word. It's just consciousness exists in all things. And so when you become aware of that and you see it and you can, use God to discern all of that. It's not like you jump into all that. But I always find it really interesting. And since we loved Kauai so much, I was like, okay, I want to go and I want to understand their sacred places and go on a journey. So I had a guide, and she took us to one of the first oldest temples they had that was, no longer there, but there were still stones, and she was talking about the purpose of it and everything. And I remember just looking at it, and I had this vision of a person doing hula up on the top of the mountain. So we were sitting on the ocean, looking at the top, the very highest peak in Kauai. And this voice came through and said, cloud dancer, welcome home. And then I see this vision of this. And then I see Jules was standing next to me. And then I see this vision of her in the valley. And it's like we knew each other. But they were all excited that I was there, these stones. And Julie had not really, at that point in our marriage, I started having these, what do you call them, mystical experiences. And she hadn't really. And she just started crying, looking at these stones. And I went, oh, this is weird. So I went to her and said, are you okay, babe? What's going on? She goes, oh, no, I just want to give these stones a hug. So she was remembering at some level. And I had this thing, and maybe you could talk about this a little bit before we wrap up, and I'll make you give us kind of the 3 things you would do to get more connected to nature before we leave. But I have this thing I do when I travel, because I realize this. Sometimes I go to different countries or different places, and I'll feel unsettled initially. Like I'll feel really thrown off. And so one time I asked that question, like, why is that? And then what I did is I prayed and connected. So I do a prayer and I connect to the land now when I go in to align with the energies of the land. And I ask God to open me up to anything I need to learn or whatever that is.
I love that.
With wherever that is. So I learned that over time by being unsettled, angry. I remember the first one, what triggered a lot of this was Costa Rica. It's a beautiful place. My wife and I went there. She was feeling unsettled. I was feeling unsettled. We went to go to bed the first night, long, not super long flight, but flight in. It was late, everything. And the first thing we went to give each other a kiss, and we knocked each other's heads. And my forehead hit her cheekbone. And I'm like, oh my God, so my wife's going to have a black eye the whole vacation. This is like a horrible start. So I prayed. And then I prayed to God. I prayed, okay, whatever this is, let me become more aware of it. I put my hand on her cheek, and when she woke up in the morning, she had nothing, no mark, no red marks, no bruises, of course there was a lot of tears that night when we racked it pretty good, but
Right.
everything that I had prayed for happened, and then I began to settle in. And that was really one of the first trips where I went, oh, okay, I need to do this everywhere I go, right? I need to connect first so that I can be aware of what the land has to offer, because I believe the land is enormously conscious, and, we can choose to connect to that. So I want you to talk, because I don't know how much you travel. I don't know that about you. A lot. Okay. So maybe talk about that for you a little bit, and maybe different experiences with different places.
So I am big on just being still when I go somewhere. So like when we traveled to Whitefish, I wanted to go on a hike to connect with the land when we got there. And we went on a hike into the middle of the forest up the side of a mountain. And there was a moment where I just stood still, closed my eyes, and said, God, what do you want me to see? I like to do that because I agree with you. Energy is in everything. It's in the trees, it's in the ground, it's in the rocks, it's in the air, it's literally everywhere we go. And the energetic footprint of the place that we are in has the residue of the people who were there before us, right? And sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's not good. And sometimes the land is trying to compensate for that too. So I like to get out and just close my eyes for 15, 20 seconds and just, God, what do you want me to see? And then when I open my eyes, there's some sort of something, right, to be seen. I do that kind of everywhere that I go. We had a trip to Mexico, down not far from Puerto Vallarta in Chilani. And that place holds a special energy for rebirth and reset. And the second time that we were there, we went twice. And the second time we were there, we had literally a full-on rebirth experience while we were there. And it was alarming at first until we recognized what it was. But I agree with you. Everywhere you go, you should try to make that sort of connection. One of the things that helps me in nature is to take off my shoes and take off my socks and fully ground, right? And be able to feel the energy of the earth in that place. It's important to honor the place you're in that way. The earth has always been a recharging for humankind, but our rubber in our shoes and the wool on our feet don't allow that to happen all the time.
That is true.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give people my perspective on, like you said, you're right. It's like every place you go has things that you might be there for God. We're all servants of God. You might be there for God to help shift some energy, because, it takes awareness and observation. And if you're the one that's there and is aware and observation, you might be there to shift some stuff that may not be so pleasant, or you may be there to uplift the energy that's already there. And when I see things like past life things, I know that doesn't go over well in Christianity, but the truth of it is that I've had so many of them, I can't ignore it. But the way I do look at it, I joke with someone, because I'm such a cook, I said, it's kind of like when God made me, God took a soup of things that he wanted accomplished. And so he went to his recipe cabinet, which is the infinite, and he went, I'm going to take all these ingredients and make this Jeffrey.
Yep.
And Jeffrey's going to have this experience. And some of that involved maybe other aspects of the divine creation that I am having experiences, and whatever God deems me. So I don't put a whole lot of weight on it. I think it's wildly interesting in that I always learn something from it. So I always thank God, like, okay, so I don't, the mystical experiences aren't brought in without a purpose. I think when you have them and you really, like you did with that beautiful book, when you seek out the purpose, the answers, they might not come that day, but the answers will come to you on what that's about. outside of, maybe it's God just loving on you completely, and you're just bathed and basked in the glory of all that is divine. Or it's, hey, these were decisions that were made, and maybe they didn't lead to the best places. Maybe you need to have a broader perspective on that decision, or whatever that is,
Yeah.
So we're at the point in time, my dear.
Yeah.
I mean, we're coming in to land the plane, but so I always, and I know this is a little curveball for everybody that I do this, but I always ask for 3 things. So, and I'm sure you can easily come up with 3. But give the folks, I always like simple takeaways. Give the folks 3 things they could do after listening to this podcast that they could bring more of the divine to them through nature. What would you suggest?
First being go outside and sit. Not on a chair, try to sit on the ground if you can. If you can't and you have to sit in a chair, take off your shoes and socks and put your feet on the ground and close your eyes and ask God what what he wants you to see. And give him a little bit of time, 15, 20 seconds, whatever the case may be, and open your eyes and what's the first thing that you fixate on. And maybe it's a leaf, maybe it's water, maybe you're sitting in front of a lake, maybe it's something in the sky or a cloud or whatever, but really look at it and say, okay, what is it when I open my eyes that he wants me to see? That's one way to connect. You will find God there, and then you'll want to do it more. I promise you that. I would say another thing is to really look at what is around you. We're caught up in so many things in our lives. We're solving problems in our head all the time about what happened yesterday, what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen a couple of hours from now, what's happening 5 minutes from now. Allow yourself time to quiet your brain and just look at his beauty. Look at what is in front of you, at the plants as they're breathing, just like you're breathing. Look at the plants and see his glory and see his beauty in that and see the creation of that. And one of the other things, the third thing probably I would say that helps me the most is walk outside, close your eyes, and just breathe and smell the air and feel the air that's around you, that was given to you to sustain your life. That's another great way to connect with God's resource of nature for you. And of course, you can breathe inside your house, but it's not the same as being able to hear what's out there, hear it, smell it, feel it around you, just to fully connect yourself with something that's going to sustain you.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter where you're at. I have this practice I do, and I'll share with you. You may know this one or not. I don't know. I do a thing called swallowing the sun. So basically, you go outside, you close your eyes, on a sunny day. You can't do it when the sun's not there. And, you're not supposed to look at the sun with your eyes, but you have your eyes closed, so look up at the sun, raise your arms, and then you breathe in like you're swallowing the sun. And you just feel the light filling your body up, and then you swallow it and you ground it into the earth and you send it down into Mother Earth. And just do that a few times.
Oh, I love that.
What I find is that your body, it just begins this big gold ball of light. It's amazing because every breath, if you breathe in and you're conscious of it, every breath fills you more up with
the light.
With the light, which is God. So you got a few minutes here to, you want to share anything? You want to share about your podcast? You want to pitch anything else you're doing?
Yeah, I would just say, I have been hosting Evolve Through God for only a year. It hasn't been that long. And it's been amazing to be able to share the relationship that God has with each of us because it's so unique for all of us. So take a listen to the podcast. If you like it, then share it with people that you know. And if you know anybody who'd be a great guest on the show, then send me a note. We are on all the major podcast platforms, so Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeart, you pick it, we're there. And go listen to Jeffrey's episode if you haven't done that yet, because he was quite amazing in his episode. So go check him out. And I love doing it. I love sharing God's unique relationship with everyone, and more people who listen to it, the better.
That's awesome. And then I for folks, I have I'll have all the links to Angela's show in the description, whether you're going to YouTube or to just listen to the audio version on Podbean or Spotify. So just don't worry about having to remember everything here or write everything down. It'll be on, right? If you just go right below where you're playing this podcast, it'll be right there. You just click on that. So I really appreciate your time today and sharing your beautiful smile with me and little journey. So it's always fun talking about fun things in nature, and we just actually need to get together and play together in some fun way. So.
When you're ready to go to Hawaii, you tell me, because that's I've got 7 states left, and that's one of the ones on my list.
Oh my God, yeah, you might fall in love with it too. It's maybe not the cheapest place to go, but it is just has. I think there's different places in the world that are meant for you to spiritually connect to, kind of in your DNA, if you will. And so they're kind of road mapped in you. So you'll feel it when you go there. It doesn't really matter where it's at. I love my hometown. And most people in the world wouldn't move here, but I have a unique, energetic connection to this place, and it's home. And I think that's how, there's so many beautiful places in the world. So, but I like to wrap up with a prayer. So let's say a little prayer, and then we'll let folks go. Heavenly Father, open up our hearts, our minds, our eyes, our ears, our beings to all that is you. All of our cells in our body, Lord, let us feel you when we walk out and breathe in that crisp, beautiful air, even on a cold day. Let us look at your love and your light and your design, your glory and your design, and in the trees and the plants and the birds and the deers, and in all the beautiful little critters. I love my chipmunks out in my backyard.
Yeah.
So we're just fill our hearts with your grace, your design, beauty that is in all things. And let us choose to see that in not just all things, but all our fellow children, your children, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.